morning. Welcome to everyone here. It is now Monday, 23rd of June, and we will now resume proceedings in Finance Committee, dealing primarily with the appropriations to the Minister of Education, Employment, and Gender Affairs. I'll ask everyone to take their seats. Before they do that, I'll ask Mr. Eden if he would please lead us in prayer.
All-powerful, most wonderful Heavenly Father, through your precious Son Jesus, we now come into your holy presence as we once again commence the deliberations in Finance Committee about the way forward for our islands, as we, as a legislative assembly, deliberate, as we listen to the witnesses who work within our programs to make these islands better. At this time, we ask for guidance from above, that we as legislators will respect each other and our witnesses. We ask for your continued guidance in all that we do. We pray for our families far and near. Keep them healthy and safe. Be for the chairman as he chairs these meetings, and that we may be guided at all times, that what is done is for the honor and glory of your holy name. In your Son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Bush. Please be seated. Mr. Eden, please. If Minister Rivers, everyone is in place. All your members of staff are here. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
before you move to the minister's appropriations, I did request of yourself that I intended to move a Finance Committee motion on procedure, and I propose to do that at this point, Mr. Chairman. That motion is one dealing with the airport's matter that was raised here last week, and I propose to move a motion that the matter be sent to the Privileges Committee of the Legislature. And so, Mr. Chairman, I can only move a motion. I can't pass it. The committee has to pass it firstly. But I hereby move that the matter of the Board of the Airports Authority's activities relating to the involvement of the porn matter and suspension of the information technology manager. Mr. Chairman, I'm moving my motion.
Mr. Bush, you need, I think, as I've been in this house now for almost just over a year, I do recall that whenever a motion is to be moved, you do require the chair to first grant permission for the motion.
Oh, well, I thought that was agreed, but nevertheless, go ahead and do what you have to
do.
Mr.
I do recall observing that much. And Mr. Bush, with all due respect to you, sir, and your desire to further ventilate this matter,
Not here, though, ventilation, not here, Mr. Chairman, to the Privileges Committee.
I hear that. But once the motion is moved, then we will get into the debate of the matter in order to take the vote on the motion.
Well, that will depend on members, yes.
Right, and therefore the debate itself would ventilate the matter further. And I think on Friday we agreed that the matter was closed and members did not want the matter to proceed to this select committee on privileges.
Mr. Chairman,
and
no, Mr. Chairman, but that's not right.
But
What
Mr. Bush,
I just want to make you know what my point was last week, Friday, that the government is the government. They have a majority and they will do what they please. But if the matter went to the Privileges Committee, I was not condoning a meeting held behind closed doors. That was my position.
You weren't going to have a meeting in camera. But my primary concern is that today is the 23rd of June.
Yes.
I have one final ministry to complete. I then have a few days after that to leave the report from the Finance Committee to the House, and then for the matter to go through the necessary, for the appropriation to go through the necessary procedures before it becomes law. Next week, Monday, of course, is June 30th, and the appropriations have to be in place by midnight, June 30th, and gazetted for the law to be in effect for July 1st, Tuesday morning. So time is of essence for me today. And for that matter, Mr. Bush, I know that you, as experienced as you are, will have other avenues through which you can ventilate this matter and deal with it. So I am not going to grant permission for the motion to be moved for the simple reason that Section 9(1) of the Legislative Assembly Immunities, Powers and Privileges Law, 1999 revision, would still apply to the correspondence in question, even if the matter is referred to the Select Committee. But the fact that once I accept the motion, you move the motion, the debate on the motion would take an extended period of time.
Who's going to debate it? I ain't debating it. I've made everything I can make known. But I do feel that this matter needs to go to the Privilege Committee. And I don't think that members here are going to debate it. I think I am asking for a vote to send it to the committee. And I think that is proper within procedure. But I also want to say that I understand your concern about our budget process. But I do know, too, that we have sufficient days for this budget to be passed and to be ascended to before the 30th expiration time. So I certainly don't see the problem with the time frame, because we're at the end of the Finance Committee, and as I said, from what I know, we do have sufficient time. But I do not believe that this matter should be left without coming from this committee. How do I get it into the legislature? You speak of things that I can do, Mr. Chairman. I can't move that matter from here, I don't think, from research so far, without it being sent from this committee. And all I'm asking is for the government to say yes or no. Do they want it sent to the committee? Yes or no? And that's what this motion is all about.
Mr. Bush, I respectfully disagree with what you've been saying. I wasn't absolutely certain as to whether it was a matter for Finance Committee at the outset. But however, as we progressed, I saw where it really and truly had nothing to do with any appropriation directly, while I agree that the appropriation to the Minister with respect for policy advice matters does specifically mention this authority. At the end of the day, it was an HR matter, a dispute that had to do with HR matters.
But plenty of money is involved, Mr. Chairman.
Not,
and we don't need to go back through that. I don't want to go back through it.
I'm just explaining to you, sir, why I'm not going to allow the motion to go forward. My primary concern is not to have a midnight rush on June 30th, but to ensure that the country knows that their budget is approved with ample time before the 1st of July next week, Tuesday.
Come on, Mr. Chairman.
So
I am, than that,
with all due respect, Mr. Bush, I am not going to allow the motion to be brought at
You're
this
not going
time.
to take a copy of the motion?
I will.
You can't make them private sector lawyers frighten you to death. It's frightening. Here's a copy of the motion.
I'm not the least bit afraid of that, sir. I'm just
it sounds to me very
following.
much that's the direction you all have went in.
I'm just
You
following.
received this letter from them.
I'm just
telling you
following the
they
law.
can't move forward.
At this
They
time,
can't instruct with this assembly.
At this time, I will invite questions to the Minister of Education,
I can try
Gender
to
Affairs,
you all went to.
Minister of Education, Employment and Gender Affairs, with respect to the appropriations that are being made to her. And at this time now,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Miller.
we did say on Friday that we were going to deal with the matter of security guards that I had requested you to compile the totals on.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have a problem with dealing with that after the Minister of Education. I just want to reserve the right to do so.
Thank you. I do recall us saying that, sir, and we can do that once we have completed the Ministry of Education.
Page.
We will be starting for the sake of efficiency. We will start with the smaller, and what the minister has asked me to do is to start with appropriations EGA 9. That's on page 201. So we will start with appropriation EGA 9, training and support for adults with disabilities, $1,346,000 $880 on page 201. Are there any questions? Yes, sir, 201, page 201. Mr. McLean?
Mr. Chairman, does this include the Lighthouse School?
Mr. Chairman, through you, no, this does not. This is just with respect to the Sunrise Adult Training Center vote.
That is in the one in West Bay?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, he can go. I'm just
Thank
looking for something.
Mr. Bush, yes.
Can the minister say what plans are existing or that she's working on for expansion of the school in West Bay? That particular Sunrise.
Ms. Rivers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, as with the rest of the government, we always know that, or we know that, our capital budget itself is limited. But what we are attempting to do, and what we have been doing over the year, is to look at the plans for expansion and to see where, if possible, we can develop the public-private partnerships to help move that forward. I know that there have been some work on the redesign and reconfiguring of the existing center, and I would invite the director of the Sunrise Center to speak to that in more detail.
Thank you, Minister Rivers.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Did you say that they are working on a design?
Minister Rivers.
Is that what the minister said?
We've done a needs assessment. I've been informed that a needs assessment has been conducted, and for the design of a new Sunrise Center with respect to addressing those particular needs. But as I said, there are obvious constraints with respect to capital budget and capital allocation. So we're looking to see how we can move that process forward with respect to utilizing the goodwill that exists in the community as well.
The design you're talking about. Design or? Mr. Chair?
With respect, Mr. Chair, I'll ask the director to speak more specific to the details on the question.
Thank you. For the record, could you please state your full name and title?
Shari Smith, Director of Sunrise Adult Training Center.
Thank you.
Through the chair, what we have completed is the needs assessment as well as a schedule of accommodations and a design plan in terms of where room allocations and programming would be set up. The point that we have now reached is dependent on, as our Minister Rivers has indicated, on the financing and budgeting for the building of such a facility, as well as the operational costs that would accompany increasing the services and programs of the Sunrise Center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bush, you were indicating you had a question, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you. I see we've gone from number of specialized programs provided from 6 in 2014 to 3, and I see where the price $1,313,000 has risen to $1,346,000. Can you explain what has happened here?
Through the chair, when I took over as director, one of my first objectives was to relook at our outputs. And what we found is that some of the things that had been listed were more actually a part of the actual program. And so we are still providing all of the programs that were listed under the 6. It's just that we have now put it under the umbrella of the therapeutic and training services.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. McLean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I can ask, does this Sunrise School take in adults from throughout the country?
Through the chair, the mandate is to be able to provide services to all adults in the Cayman Islands. Our biggest challenge is our location, and we transport almost 99% of our clients in. So therefore, we have only been able to go to as far as Northward, the district of Northward. But we are hoping that we will be relocating in a more centralized area of the country in which we will be able to provide services to all persons from various districts.
And when is that planned, Mr. Chairman?
He asked, when is that planned?
Through the chair, as I just indicated, that we are ready to move once we have the funding that will be able to accommodate a new facility that will be able to provide services to all persons as well as our operational costs.
And do we know what that is?
Through the chair, when we completed our project, we had estimated the actual facility with the equipment would be around $8 million, and our operational costs would probably go up to almost $25 to $3 million, because we'd have to increase our staff numbers, as well as we would have a larger facility that we would have to maintain and operate.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if Ms. Smith can tell us how many adults are out there that is not a part of your program that needs to be in a program of that nature?
Currently, we provide service to 50 adults. We have 18 additional adults we provide services to, and we have a growing wait list, sir. Our wait list currently is at 25 adults.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
sorry, those are the persons who have actually contacted us to be registered with our program.
precisely my next question. Have we done a study to determine if we are reaching all, or potentially looking at the amount that is potentially out there?
Through the chair, we have done some research in terms of the numbers of individuals that we need to be providing services to. Most of our clients do come from the Lighthouse School, so we have actually projected over the next 5 years how many individuals and the level of their disabilities that we will need to be able to accommodate in a facility. And since I have taken seat, we have actually also increased our numbers of referrals from the community. And so the numbers are growing as the word is getting out in terms of what we're actually doing at the center.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask if there's any intention to go out and do a complete review, polling, gather data collection on what we potentially have to face in the future?
That information was a part of, through the chair, through the needs assessment that was completed in the Deloitte report.
In the what?
The Deloitte report that did the needs assessment.
And what did it say?
Through the chair, it did say that we have a growing number of the population. It's estimated, looking at the numbers that are currently at Lighthouse School, that we could actually reach over 100 individuals that we would have to provide services to. One of the unique things about Sunrise is that we are the only center that provides services to adults with disabilities, and it's not just limited to persons who have physical disabilities or intellectual disabilities, but with a new facility, we would be able to actually provide services to various individuals who need to do therapeutic training, or in regards to even something that's temporary disability.
Mr. Chairman, Can I ask if that report is public?
Sorry, sir, could you repeat that?
Can I ask if the report was made public?
It's available. The report happened before my time, but it's available, sir.
That wasn't the question, though.
Is it published?
Mr. Chair, through you, I've been informed that the study was done in 2010, but it was actually never published, but I don't see any reason why we can't make that information available to the members if need be.
Mr. McLean?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the reason why this report wasn't made public? Because that's the only way I'm going to get to read it.
Mr. McLean, if I could ask you to speak a little louder or closer to the microphone, because I'm struggling to hear, so they might be struggling as well.
Of all the things me that you ask them to speak louder.
Mr. Chair, through you, I will ask obviously this predated my time as well too, so I will ask my chief officer to address that particular question.
Mr. Chairman, if she can say the name of it as well, please?
Okay.
Yes. That's off.
Hello. Sorry about that. Through you, Mr. Chair, the title of the...
Before you
my
do
name
that,
is,
yes.
Mary Rodriguez, Chief Officer, Ministry of Education, Employment and Gender Affairs. And through you, Mr. Chair, in response, the title of the report was called the Sunrise Adult Training Center Needs Assessment, and the honourable member asked why it was not published. This was a report done at the time to inform the way forward in terms of identifying what the needs were. As upon completion, we faced the same issue, or the ministry faced the same issues currently faced, and that was in terms of not having funding. So the report was completed just to inform what the needs were, and I think it was taken forward as part of the negotiations under the former administration to see to what extent the funding would be able to be provided to take forward the project. It did not progress, and this was just used as an internal information as and when finance is allowed to be able to take it forward.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask if there were things in there, and putting aside for a second, the 3 million, I believe the young lady said, something like that, 10 million or whatever. Putting that aside for a minute, because I thought that was about development, physical development and relocation, the majority of that was about, as I understand it.
Sorry, the 3 million is for operations, and the 8 was the facility.
Yes, but you would need the 3 to go to a bigger facility.
Yes.
Yeah. Were there any other recommendations in there that did not require such financial injections that the ministry has moved ahead on to implement?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we certainly, and I'll ask the director to speak to this, we certainly have invested funding into enhancing the current facility as far as is possible. There are significant limitations in what can actually be done, but I'd ask the director to speak to what has been done on the current site, and also in terms of enhancing the staffing provided and purchase of specialized equipment as well. So we've worked along on those angles to enhance the services that are currently provided.
Keeping in mind that I want to know recommendations from the report, not what we can do to accommodate what we need down there, or what we think we need. I'm talking about recommendations in that said report.
Through the chair, any recommendations in the report have a significant budgetary implication. Presently, we have, as the chief said, we have done things to improve on our current programming, which is one of the first steps was actually hiring trained teachers. And so we now have one teacher post and another. If we looked at the idea of opening kind of small centers within the districts, it would still have operational implications in terms of staffing, finding appropriate facilities, and so forth. Even the outreach program, because again of our staffing limitations and the numbers growing within the facility we've had to limit that program as well. So everything is impacted by being able to find funding for whether it's resources in actual materials or resources in persons to be able to run those programs.
Mr. Chairman, I guess it don't make sense to do these reports. It's just your creativity that is doing what you're doing now. I gotta leave it right there, sir.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, we'll proceed to vote.
Mr. Chair, I've just, if the chief officer would just like to make a point of clarification on the scope of their report, apparently, just for the record.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the honourable member, just as a point of clarification, so we're clear the scope and focus of this report, because I guess he's asking, are there recommendations that were outside of the facility proposals? And just to read from the introduction to the report, it was a report. Deloitte was engaged to conduct a needs assessment of adults with disabilities as a prerequisite to developing a facility design model. So the report focused not on making broader recommendations about needs, except in the context of a new facility. So that's the focus of the report. All the recommendations are in terms of what would be the appropriate design to meet the needs of adults with disabilities.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if that's privileged information. Because it would be nice for us to get a copy.
Of the report?
Yes,
Are you requesting a copy?
absolutely, sir.
Minister
Mr. Chair,
Rivers?
through you, I will make the copy available to all members in the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of EGA 9, training and support for adults with disabilities for $1,346,880, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. EGA 4, public library services, $1,659,298 on page 193.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. One second, Mr. Bush. Just want to. Yes, correct. So that is EGA 4, public library services, $1,659,298 on page 194. 194. Mr. Bush was asking first. Mr. Bush?
Mr. Chairman, in relation to the various libraries in the districts, how are they staffed now?
Mr. Chair, I would ask the Director of Public Library Services to answer that question in more detail.
Thank you. Before you respond, please state your name and full name and title for the record. Thank you.
Ramona Melody, Director of the Public Library Service. The way that they're staffed right now is that there is a branch manager who is assigned to each of the branches. At the West Bay branch, there is a branch manager plus a library assistant because of the number of people that come in each day. The Georgetown Public Library has 4 library assistants, and the deputy director is also housed there. The East End branch, Northside branch, Cayman branch, and Bodentown branch has 1 branch manager. On Fridays, starting in July, each has a separate one, exactly. And starting in July, on Fridays, there will be another person that comes for 3 hours a day to provide each of those branches, East and North Side, Town, with extra hours.
Thank you.
So all the districts are open
Yes,
regular hours and are staffed and are open regular hours.
Yes, all of them are open, and let me give you the exact hours. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they're open from 10 to 6. Friday, they will be open in the afternoon when children get off, which would be from 3 to 6. And then they're open on Saturday for 4 hours, which will be from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, not open on Sunday. Up until this point, there has also been a problem due to staffing that it's been open alternate Saturdays, but in July, that will discontinue because we have just hired on some new staff.
Thank you. Mr. Miller was next, and then Mr. B. Bush. Mr. Miller.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the Northside Library is now open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, from the hours of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Friday from 3 to 6 p.m., and on Saturday from 10 to 2.
Starting July 1st, it will be open on Fridays also, between 3 and 6, and every Saturday instead of alternate Saturdays, yes.
Okay. We know that they're not open Fridays now.
Correct.
What are the current hours that the Northside Library is supposed to be open with a person in attendance? Today, not next budget,
Right.
this school year.
Today, it would be from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This week, it will not be open on Friday, and Saturday from 10 o'clock till 2.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, who is the branch manager for the Northside Library now?
The lady's name is Miss Andrea Taft. She is an 8-year employee who was previously a library assistant, who was just recently promoted into that position.
When did she start to work at the Northside Library?
She actually started working during the time the painting inside and out was being done, because I wanted her to steer that effort.
Is the staff from the Northside Library still used to supplement Georgetown and West Bay when staff don't show up to work there, whether on vacation, sick or otherwise?
As of July 1st, no, because we now have a person who works on Saturday only at the Georgetown Library. We hired another new person whose days are from Tuesday through Saturday. So those two people will cover Georgetown on Saturdays. I myself also go in on Saturday.
How do you know that the library in Northside is open for these hours?
Well, that is a very good question. What happened is that I had everyone install Skype. I'm able to speak to each person each day, and they're happy to do that because they've got a lot going on. And they're very excited about their new roles. So we speak every day. Also, on Fridays, I do have a supplementary team that's going to cover on Fridays, so they have to also interact. And our finance manager does have to travel out to the branches once a week to assist with cataloging and the new collections.
So the Northside Library from July the 1st will have its own branch manager who will be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 10 to 6.
That is correct.
And Fridays, 3 to 6, and Saturdays, 10 to 2.
That is correct.
So they're expected to work the normal civil service 37 and a half hours a week.
Mm-hmm. That is correct, sir.
Mr. Miller, any further questions, or can I now turn to Mr. Bush? Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Bush?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. At 10 o'clock in the morning times, what type of usage are you getting? What I'm trying to get to, have you looked at the times when the library is open that there's not much usage that you could, what's that 10 o'clock in the morning time look like? Do you have?
The 10 o'clock, between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, it really isn't as much. However, having said that, there are new programs that are going to be initiated that will actually draw people in. One of them certainly needs to be that we need to target the preschools more heavily than we have been doing that. And so and what happens is preschools tend to come earlier. And so the other thing is that what we have noted is that we are not tapping in to the elderly population at all as much as we need to be. And so particularly I'm really trying this, and we'll see what happens. At the North Side branch and the East End branch, we would like to initiate book clubs for seniors. And so it's not that something can't happen, it's just that we need to be more creative about what we're going to do.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Mr. Saku?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, could the minister state what plans are in place to replace or upgrade the IT equipment in the Bordentown Library? Because I've noticed that a lot of the computers there that are available for the public to use are not working currently.
Thank you very much for asking that.
Actually, thank you. Since the question was directed to me, there are plans in works, and I would ask the director to give more detailed response on that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we do have brand new computers, and because what I know historically is that Georgetown tends to get the new equipment first, this time the new computers, of which we have just received 8, are going out to the district branches first. 2 to Cayman Brack, 2 to Northside, 2 to Bordentown, 2 to Easton. West Bay, because they have a bank of computers, will also need to wait till the second round. Those computers are here and they are being configured right now. In addition, I have also bought 3 myself that just came in last week, and those are laptops which can also travel around. We intend, in this budget year, it has taken a little longer than I anticipated, but I intend to try to get as many as 5 more because they are in the budget.
Thank you. Mr. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I will restrict my questions to East End. That's where I want to focus on, because in 14 years, I've heard all the sound bites. There have been many, and they have been varied, but all for naught. I know where many of us come from, zero don't mean anything. But East End, it is having a serious effect on my students. And people, the authorities are not looking at it. Anyway, I recently visited the library with some of the ministry staff, and we concluded that it was not fit for purpose. Do you know about that?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, I do know about that. I heard about that, and Tommy Ebanks, our facilities manager, and I have actually been talking about what we can do now and what is going to require additional money. I think that the first thing that needs to happen is that the branches need to be painted inside and out, and the circulation desk can be moved now. And the reason why it needs to be moved is because you can't really do effective classes in groups the way that it's set up. Plus, the librarian that's there needs to be able to see people before they see her. So those are things that are being done right now. Also, each Tuesday, our finance manager / cataloger is going out to weed out all the old books, and she has a whole new collection that's coming in. So those things are on the docket, and those things are beginning. And I am aware that you've maybe heard a lot of things, and I'm hoping that this time these things will really happen. So that the East End should begin, I'm not sure. I will have to defer to our facilities manager about that. So the East End renovation will be starting this week, prior to Friday, from what I'm understanding. Okay, and then these are the updates that I have written. We also, and I'm very nervous, but anyway, we have provided new televisions, not just to the East End, but to every single branch. New air conditioners will be installed sometime later this year, new computers, weeding of the current collection. The entire library system has a new e-book collection to service individuals who are disabled and who can't maybe get to the library, or to anyone who isn't coming into the facility. We also have made a commitment to purchase local books first with each budget year. And so up until this point, we have 200 new sets of books that will be placed, and these are by local authors in each of the branches. Also, right now, the programs that are going on are I Am the Smartest Reader, the tutoring is continuous, and then with the new computers, she'll finally be able to offer Tech Bites there, and then the Summer Reading Challenge, which is going on. Also, all of the branches, the smaller branches, are going to have new alarm systems, because we are then, of course, with all the new technology and, of course, the people, we do need to do a better job of protecting them. So those things have actually started, and many of the things are there on site at this point.
Mr. Chairman, in 14 years, you would think I would have learned that when I get these sound bites, I get commitments direct so we can hold people accountable. And in keeping with that now, after 14 years of learning, can I ask, the renovations that are going to be started this week, what is the extent of those renovations? What is going to be done?
The first thing that's going to be done is the outside is going to be painted according to the color scheme that was agreed upon. Then the whole inside needs to be painted as well. And during that time period, I must alert you that the library will be closed. The reason that they weren't all done at the same time is because we understood that libraries would have to be closed while the renovations were going on. And the only other thing that will be done right now is that the circulation desk does need to be moved off to the side where it was agreed to be moved. The books that have been, the book weeding has already actually started. And so many of the books that really should have been off the shelves quite a while ago have been removed. She has a new collection of $2,000 worth of books that will be coming in. And those are on site right now. The computers are also here.
I know you're new, ma'am. I know you're new. I should inform you, though, that when I ask questions, there are some reasons why I ask them. I don't know who's given you information, but whomever has given you information is not the same information that I have, because I am extremely involved in that district. I ain't gonna blame you. You're relatively new, so you have to learn for yourself. It took me a long time, 14 years. You haven't been post 14 years, so. But I will give you the benefit of the doubt, because you get this information. Me, I am on the ground. Okay? Mr. Chairman, there are other reasons why the painting has not already been done. But you go back and you ask them the other reasons, ma'am. I don't want to get into that one. Now, when we were there, I spoke to them about the circulation of that library, and about redesigning it in order that we utilize technology much more. East End Library is fairly heavily used, and with adults as well, by adults as well. Many people don't have the facilities at home, so they use it. It's a rural community, and that's where they go to. and we talked about the circulation of it. Are you aware of those potential renovations that is needed for the circulation and better use of the available space within the library?
Well, through you, Mr. Chairman, I am aware to the extent that I know what can create better circulation as a librarian. What I'm looking at when I go into the library is that it cannot be used as effectively as I think it could be, because I, first of all, think that the circulation desk itself is honestly too large. It's too large for the facility. The other thing is that we need a computer that's devoted to the catalog, to the online catalog. With regard to the size of the facility itself, currently you can only get really 2 computers in there. And so the librarian really wants to move some of the books out so that you can actually have more computers there. And then, of course, finally, we do need to have enough laptops so that they can actually be opened and used and then stored. Because no matter what, the building is still going to be of a size that can't accommodate too many banks of computers, but could accommodate many more laptops that are just stored away.
But certainly when Mr. Emacs and I visited and we looked at the measurements in there, there was a possibility to increase the number of computers in that library with reconfiguration of the inside and the shelves. Because I see what is happening is that whilst I believe reading is a very good thing by books, from books, learning from books is very educational. Nowadays we have moved to the technological side, and those computers have been in there for about 7 years now. I don't even know if you can find where Cayman is on those. They've been in there from dinosaur years. I mean, with technology changing once a year, and nothing has been done. I have asked for the upgrade of them. But having said that, there are, I think, 3 computers there. We have 2 kids on the computers, a number of kids waiting, and then an adult in the room there, the little glassed-in room, on another computer, the other computer, and there's nothing we can do. These discussions we had looked at about 6 or so computers in the back, walled off with glass and the likes. Was that not all discussed with you?
That was not discussed clearly with me, no.
Okay.
However, I would say, well, in answer to some of your queries, the one thing is that I do want to keep as many books in the library as possible while still being able to add the kind of technology that I know is going to be needed. The computers that are there, you're absolutely right. They are just too old. They all need to be switched out, and we are doing that as quickly as we can. And as I say, I have committed to making sure those are switched out first. The other thing is that we do need to try to use other kinds of technology that will do the same job. And I know that laptops will do that. Now, we can get some banks of computers because some of the books that we know are there really aren't useful anymore. And so those, we have started to take those out. And that will leave some space for some, not, so we'll put new ones in and then use some of that space to put some additional computers in. It may not be exactly as you envision it, but it is going to be new computers. The old ones have to go because they're not even going to stand up, I don't think, for another few months. So we do have plans underway to do that. Now, I would be happy to, because it's fluid. It's not as though, I don't really feel that I can make all of the right decisions without input from the community.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah. And so having
And I
said
can
that,
find
then,
plenty of people in the community
Well, it could be-
do input.
yes. And so what I would like to do is we need to get it renovated to a point. I mean, we need to get it painted inside and out. It needs it desperately. We need to get the new computers in, get the TVs up and working first. And then if we are talking about extensions, remodeling, then that is when we will have to do a survey of our own. That survey will be available to everybody, and it will also be on the actual OPAC, on the online catalog, so that you can see what the results are. And I would be willing to listen to anything to get more people into the library, because that is my goal.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not a librarian, but I do know, I've used a library many times in my life, and I do know that I see a paradigm shift when it comes to why people visit the library. And it's in my constituency particularly, it is to get access to the internet. And now we need to provide that if that is the reason they want to go there. And where we suggested is to put a bank of computers in the back. It's not used for anything else. We have all the books piled up in the front on these little shelves that many, like you say, are obsolete, some of them, and they have stayed there ever since we opened the library, I would think. But I don't know if the chief officer has been made aware of the proposed reconfiguration of that library and what the results of that was.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the capital needs and proposals, the first step is for the director of the library to consult with facilities and make recommendations and proposals, which are then brought forward for discussions and decision-making at the budget stage in terms of what resources there are and how they will be distributed. So just to answer your question directly, I will not have been formally or individually briefed on the needs, but certainly I would have expected facilities to be in discussion with the director and then for those matters to be brought forward for discussion with the minister.
In other words, nada will be done now. Is that what I'm hearing? That no provisions has been made for... I went there, Mr. Chairman, with the facilities manager and a deputy to look at the painting of the facility. And I took the opportunity to invite them inside so I could show them what my thoughts were on us attract the input that the chief librarian is asking for. That was my objective. And we discussed it quite openly, and they assisted with that discussion to facilitate it and move it forward. Now, what I'm hearing is that this is another zero. All my time in East End at that library was for naught. And in the meantime, my children in particular are going to have another year of sufferation. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, if we're going to concentrate on our children, this is one of the avenues we need to develop to keep them off the streets. If they are eager to go, why are we going to let the library be a babysitting institution as opposed to them getting on the computer and we watching them on that and they're learning something, they're doing their homework or otherwise? When is this going to be done? When can I get a commitment that something is going to be done about the configuration of the library in East End?
Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, sir. Through you, Mr. Chair, I think just to formalize our response, you've heard from the director about actual formal plans to enhance the library services in East End as well as other districts. She's talked about recognizing, and I think in complete agreement with the honourable member, about the need to upgrade the computer facilities. She's actually talked about and identified that we already have 2 new computers that are on island ready to be installed. She's talked about the first steps in terms of moving or improving the library as being the completion of the painting of the exterior and the interior, and certainly she's talked about being very open to getting feedback, including information and feedback from the honourable member in terms of other steps that can be taken to improve on matters.
What does that mean?
I think they're asking someone to give a more detailed response on undertaking.
Mr. Chairman, if the chief officer can't give an undertaking here and the minister that something is going to be done about that library, I don't expect the 2 of them to do it. Mr. Saku and the chief librarian. I don't expect them to do it. I expect the minister and or the chief officer to give us a commitment on this thing. I mean, this lip service needs to turn into action now.
Thank you. We've spent quite a bit of time on this appropriation, so I would ask someone to...
Mr. Chair, I just want to interject here to say that obviously the director, the chief officers outline what is being planned and what is going to take place this week. And so I will continue to ask the questions to ensure that that work actually does take place. I am being asked by my deputy chief officer to be able to address this matter as he was involved in the original assessment that the member is speaking to. So if you would permit, I'd like to have him just speak to the matter as to when things will get done.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if the minister can tell us where, if there's anyone in here, and me in particular, for the Library of East End, for those extensive renovations, the chief librarian said that it's not fit for purpose, agreed with me. Where are the funds to affect that? Change it.
Thank you. I will ask, as I said, the Deputy Chief Officer who is involved in this aspect of the work in the Ministry to be able to give a more fulsome
Thank you,
response.
Ms. Rivers.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Kristen Saku, Deputy Chief Officer, Ministry of Education. The meeting that the members referring to took place on the 17th of April, and at that point our deliberations with Cabinet had already taken place. However, we gave an undertaking to review the items that the member was requesting be addressed. The instruction I gave to the facilities manager was to do up a full report, a minute of the meeting, and a full report of all of the items that the member wanted addressed, and that we would then sit with the head of libraries and come up with a plan for how we were going to carry out all of the works, because there was even discussions on changing out the windows in the East End Library. The director has spoken to computers coming. What I've been informed since then is that PWD has been given instruction to do drawings for the reconfiguration of the inside of the library, and that because the configuration itself was largely modular in nature, we will be using PWD labor to do the configuration itself. We have an allocation in every budget period that goes to PWD to provide services to the ministry. So those items don't need to be budgeted for in our budget. They're budgeted for in the PWD budget in terms of a number of hours and services that they provide to us. We will be using those allocations to cover the costs associated with the reconfiguration in the 14-15 budget year.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the Deputy Chief Officer for that. I do recognize that it's modular, and more importantly, what is being used there now can be utilized to affect what we discussed, all the glass partitions and the likes. I look forward to a speedy start, and then I would ask that the Chief Officer, the Minister, give us some commitment on installing more than 2 computers in East End School. The deputy was there with I. We were all there, and we saw more than 2 children on those computers and wanting to get access to those computers. And we saw the adults that were in there as well. So I would appreciate if some commitment can be given. If not, I go beg them, you know.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. We will now proceed to vote on this particular appropriation. So all those in favor of EGA 4, Public Library Services, so $1,659,298, standing part of the schedule to the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
And those against, no. Turning now to appropriation EGA 2, Job Placement and Employer Support Activities, $1,089,790 on page 191 of the Annual Plan and Estimates. Sorry, that should be 192 of the Annual Plan and Estimates. EGA 2, Job Placement and Employer Support Activities, $1,089,790 on page 192. Are there any questions? Mr. Miller?
To you, Mr. Chairman, I noticed that the number of job seekers to be assisted is 1,500 to 2,000. And we have some 20,000 people on permit. Why is the number so low?
Ms. Rivers?
Mr. Chair, through you, I've been informed that the reason this number was stated was based on historical use or historical client utilization in the agency, and therefore, obviously, the needs may increase given changing environment, but the numbers that were projected were based on the usage of the agency as it stands today.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, but the reason we were given in the last Finance Committee for increasing staff and wrapping up this thing was because we were going to be able to increase the numbers that we could deal with. And is my understanding incorrect now that we're going to expect that all work permits are going to be referenced through this agency in one form or another?
Mr. Chair, through you, one of the reasons that was discussed in the last Finance Committee for the need to increase staff was because the sheer volume of persons being dealt with far exceeded the number of persons that could actually deal with the matters in an efficient manner. So we have increased the staffing complement of the NWDA to better enhance the ability of the NWDA to be more efficient and effective in dealing with the needs as they're presented. So that was one of the reasons why we needed the additional staff. Now, with respect to your questions about work permits, also the member may be aware, and the listening public, but for the benefit of those that may not be aware, what we did very successfly thus far for the year is to be able to enhance the electronic capabilities of transferring and sharing information between the National Workforce Development Agency and the Immigration Department and its relevant boards, which the member will know is really the arbitrator or the one that makes the decisions with respect to work permits. And so for any decisions regarding employers to be or employees to be hired from outside of the jurisdiction, the Immigration Department will be able to now seamlessly log on to determine whether or not we have job seekers that are registered who can do the job based on the qualifications that they have stated in the system.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, are we now up to full complement?
Mr. Chair, that's always a very loaded question as to whether or not we've got full complement or we've had enough resources. But suffice it to say, the resources that were approved and budgeted for last year, we are up to the point where we're still the last two remaining persons to be filled, or positions to be filled, is the director and the labor market information officer, which are now currently both up positions are in recruitment. So once those positions are filled, we will have had the all of the positions that were applied for in the last budget would be filled to complement. But again, as I prefaced before, increasing needs may of course then change the dynamics for increasing resources.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, can the minister say, with all the electronic portals and people being able to go on, and with the increase in staff and all the efficiencies, why aren't we not increasing the number of people that we're assisting? Because we're not. Last year, when we were understaffed, under budgeted, we did 1,650, and this year we're only projecting 1,500 to 2,000. In fact, we might actually do less this year to meet this number.
Mr. Chair, I would ask the Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry, who deals very directly with the NWD and the operations, to elaborate in more detail as to the response to that particular question.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Tasha Ebanks Garcia. I'm the Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry of Education, Employment, and Gender Affairs. Through you, Chair, the way that we measured the output in terms of number of job seekers assisted in the 13-14 budget was based on discrete services. So that number is counting job seekers more than once. So the number is inflated in relation to the services provided. In the 14-15 budget, we are counting job seekers, irrespective of how many services they obtain from the NWDA, we're counting them once. So that number, so you can't really compare the two numbers in the manner in which the honourable member was doing. What we are going to be looking at over the 14-15 year, while we are counting the number budgeted represents job seekers, we're also going to be tracking discrete services, and over the course of the year looking at what is the best method of measuring this output. And so next year we'll be able to give a better measure of the output, but for this year we're counting against people. Last year we were counting against discrete services.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Director, what is the primary focus of job placement services? Is it to find a job for the person and find a job that they're qualified to, or is it to somehow upskill, train, and all the other verbiage that is here in the description of people, rather than find them a job for which they're qualified and which they're looking for?
Through you, Chair. The vision of the National Workforce Development Agency is to be a valued partner and facilitator in the training, development, and employment of Caymanians. To that end, the primary focus, based on the needs of our community, is human capital development. To that end, we have developed a number of initiatives that have been introduced in the 13-14 year that serve to help to work and partner with our job seekers to identify their specific barriers to employment, and then we've developed programs to help facilitate and support in that area. For example, we have developed a comprehensive intake and assessment process. That process is about 2.5 hours long. It includes an assessment in numeracy, literacy, locating for information. It includes a mental health screener, substance abuse screener, barriers to employment assessment, an assessment of hope, of perseverance, and a number of different measures. Through that assessment, which is conducted by the Employment Services Officer that is assigned to the job seeker, once the assessment has been completed and scored, the Employment Services Officer sits with their respective job seeker and shares the results of the assessment, and collaboratively they developed a professional development plan for the job seeker. This plan is designed to address any barriers to employment that have been identified through the assessment process and may include such things as a commitment from the job seeker to engage in voluntary work, a commitment to access or seek the services of the Family Resource Center or the Department of Children and Family Services or the Counseling Center or Health Services Authority, depending on what the barriers are. The professional development plan, we've created an online interface, and that plan is entered into the interface, and the agencies that we partner with, whether they be Family Resource Center, HSA, Children and Family Services, and so on, will have access to that interface for the clients that we share in common, so that together we can engage in, if you will, online case management of these clients that we share. Through that process, the clients are aware that they are going to be held accountable to their plan, so that there is a measure of accountability, that they're committing to engage in these activities that they have agreed to engage in an effort to ensure that they have the requisite skills to be able to access, maintain, and progress in employment in the Cayman Islands. We've also expanded our training and development offerings. We've got 3 primary areas of offerings. One is in soft skills, one is in technical skills, so we've got courses like counter service and food and beverage 101 and housekeeping, to name a few. We've also got an area of training that's designed around helping to prepare the job seeker to engage in employment-seeking activities such as interview skills, resume writing, and so on. So those courses as well, which are all free and offered through the NWDA, job seekers through their professional development plan will be committed to engaging in courses that are connected with any barriers that have been identified for them.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, why are we duplicating services that already exist in other agencies?
Mr. Chair, through you, the member will recall that in the other agencies, when we spoke about, in particular, the Department of Children and Family Services and the Department of Tourism, there were specific questions that asked as it relates to the work and the partnership with the NWDA. So the whole point is to not do just as the member is indicating, which is to duplicate services, but instead to complement each other, and where necessary to work collaboratively to address the issues that in many of our common clients, so to speak, to have a more coordinated approach to the area of employment and unemployment, and what are some of the reasons why persons don't either get employed or retain employment. So to the member's concern, the government has really taken a whole vision approach, or is trying to implement that for this year coming forward, to make sure that we worked more collaboratively with these other agencies so we don't duplicate efforts and we don't double spend, so to speak. Another initiative that the NWDA has, as a part of the whole re-engineering of the way the agency works, is for those clients that are not necessarily needing the intervention, the intensive interventions that the Deputy Chief Officer spoke about, who, once they've gone through the initial assessment process, has been determined to either be sufficiently competent and qualified and already having the experience necessary to register and be a client and to self-refer. They can do so, and they can do so electronically, online, without having to ever have to interface with the agency. So therefore, to the members' concern about what is the focus, what we're trying to do is to provide better services to the different types of clients that we have. Some clients we know will need to have the more intensive type professional development program, which the Deputy Chief Officer has said will now put the onus on those job seekers to do their part to make sure that they deal with whatever those barriers are. But for those clients that are already qualified or already have, that may be out of work for, timing reasons, for whatever, that can access the database, they would then be able to look and see what jobs are registered and apply directly and not have to ever interface with an employment services officer. So it makes the process, again, more efficient. And as I said, with respect to work permit decisions, the Immigration Department and their boards will have the information to hand to make the kind of decision that they need to make. And of course, as all members in this House will know, we've also created an access for MLAs in particular if you want to have an indication as to what jobs are registered, and so you can better inform your constituents as well. That information, I'm told, has already been made available to MLAs. Anyone that wants to take advantage of that opportunity, I encourage you to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, you have a follow-up?
Yeah. Could the the deputy chief officer take me through a process? I'm a qualified, experienced pharmacist. Qualifications, license, everything in place. I wish to register with the employment agency. What do I do?
Through the chair, if you're an individual who feels, if you're a Caymanian who feels as though you don't need the services as described previously in supporting you in accessing employment, you can go online to www.nwda.gov.ky and register as what we call a job seeker plus. It's an independent job seeker. All you need to do is it's a very short form that needs to be, online form that needs to be completed to give us some information on you, and then you just need to upload the requisite documents to confirm your status in the country, whether it's Caymanian or what your immigration status is in the country. Within 1 to 3 working days, our Assistant Employment Services Officer will have reviewed your registration, confirmed the details as set forth by you, and approve your application. If it's incomplete, if you haven't uploaded your documents or some required information isn't complete, you'll be contacted by the agency. Once you've been approved, then as an independent job seeker, you can go on, you can view the jobs that have been posted, you can self-refer yourself for jobs. As a Caymanian, you can also take part in the training and development opportunities. Even though you haven't gone through the ESO, you can still take part in the training if you see fit to do so. When you apply for a post that has been registered, a job that has been registered with the NWDA, if the employer decides to apply for a work permit for that post, when that application goes to the Immigration Department can then pull up the record for that post. They will see the list of all persons that have either been referred by the NWDA or who have self-referred for that post. If they have been referred by the NWDA, the Immigration Department and its boards will see a statement by the Employment Services Officer as to why that person has been recommended for that job, because again, in the spirit of accountability, we are holding our officers accountable to the referrals that they make for jobs. The Immigration Department will also see the rationale that the employer has given, the statement they have given as to why none of these persons was suitable for the post. The Immigration Department and its boards at that time can then make an informed decision on the granting of a work permit application.
Are there any further questions? Mr. McLean?
Mr. Chairman, in all of that has just been explained with the work, this NWDA, how much time do we spend with employers?
Through the chair, we at NWDA sees its partners as being both job seekers and employers. Its clients are both job seekers and employers. To that end, the NWDA goes out and visits businesses to get an idea of the business, to ensure that they have a sense of the type of employees they are looking for. Our staff have engaged in orientation exercises that staff of businesses engage in, that new staff do, so that they can get an insider's view into businesses. We meet with any employer who has requested an invitation, requested to meet with us. We have accepted all invitations and sat with them so that we can get a sense of their business. We have gone out and met with various professional associations in order to understand the needs of the associations and their members, and actively, partnering with employers so that we can have a clear understanding of what the needs are in the respective businesses, so that when the employment services officers make a referral, they also are mindful of the needs of the employers. To that end, we've also, through Cabinet's approval, a task force was convened late last year, primarily made up of private sector employers. Those individuals partnered with us in looking at the current condition of the National Workforce Development Agency and the services and the offerings, and provided us with very valuable feedback that was used in the further development of the agency and meeting the needs of the local labor market.
Mr. McLean?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I can hear, forgetting about the 162 that the government is bragging that they put in place, through all these programs, talking with the employers, I think there was one called STARS program or something like that. A number of programs. How many employees, how many unemployed Caymanians have we placed? And secondly, when we're doing that, tell me please, how many, if this NWDA register people who are on work permit as well?
Through the chair, the various categories of individuals that can register, which has been developed in line with the immigration law, are Caymanians, persons married to Caymanians, persons with permanent residency with employment rights, and legal and ordinary residents. Depending on their status in this country determines the level of service that they're provided by the NWDA. Caymanians are provided with full access to all services of the NWDA.
Mr. Chairman, I know that. I asked how many, if you register work permit people too. And by work permit, holders of work permit, I'm talking about these people who do Mr. Chairman, they have a host of people on work permit, and they serve as labor brokers, so to speak. And then those are the ones I'm concerned about. I'm asking about how many of those, if we register them, they're the brokers, and then they can place people.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if the member could, we're not quite sure what the question is. If you could just repeat, so we can provide you with an answer to the question that you're asking.
Mr. Chairman, there are people in this country who fancies themselves as brokers or register themselves as brokers, labor brokers, eh? And what they do is found this company, and particularly in the construction industry, and they go and get all these work permits so that they can, quote unquote, farm out. And so one of them could have 30 or 40 people, and they deliver them to different jobs every morning. And if they charge $10 to the employer, the contracted employer, they probably give them, for example, give them 3 and they'll take 7. And that's just, now I want to know how many of those labor brokers are registered in NWDA.
Through the chair, we don't register brokers through the NWDA.
Do we register Caymanians who have a number of people registered with them?
Through the chair, we register individual people. We don't register people representing other people.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I believe I heard earlier that something about working together with employers last year. Emphasis was placed on last year. And I wonder if that was CETA. If CETA was one of those organizations that it wasn't employers, I think it was private people, associations trying to assist. I wonder if one of those was CETA.
Through the chair, the emphasis wasn't last year. It's an ongoing work as we engage both private and public sector. Last year, the NWDA and as well going into the next financial year, we have worked with CETA. This summer, we are working with CETA in regards to the National Internship Program, and they have identified internship placements for our students who are studying both locally and abroad to gain experience in the hospitality industry. We've also partnered with such organizations as Bureau that facilitated the Restart program in this current financial year. We've also worked with the Contractors Association. We've gone out and met with them and looking to see what the needs of their association and organization are. So we've made ourselves available to any private or public sector partner that is interested in working with us in human capital development and advancing Caymanians in the workforce.
Thank you. Mr. McLean, I'm aware that Mr. Miller and Mr. Bush wanted to ask questions. Are you willing to give way to them, or you had another follow-up question, sir?
I had a little follow-up question on this because, Mr. Chair, thank you, sir. I wanted to know how successful was that program, that drive last year between NWDA and CETA to get to place unemployed Caymanians.
Mr. Chair, through you, the member would recall when the conversation took place in Finance Committee on, with respect to the Ministry of Tourism vote, that information was to be provided on the CETA drive, and so I think that the minister is working on getting the information that the member is getting at in that particular question.
But yes, Mr. Chairman, I recall that. Thanks for the minister reminding me. But I also recall that the Minister for Tourism threw some of the responsibility back over here and said I would have to ask that question here, and thus that's why I'm asking it now.
Mr. Chair, I'm made aware that we do have some of the numbers with respect to what took place to be able to answer to some degree the question that's been posed. So I'll turn it to the Deputy Chief Officer to provide that information.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I think one of the big wins in that exercise was the partnership that was started, and that partnership will continue. One of the wins in relation to that partnership was the desire of the employers within the hospitality industry to work with the public sector and the employers to identify placements for Caymanians and their interest in hiring Caymanians. Through that exercise, just under 200 jobs was identified. 183 NWDA clients with confirmed interest in the hospitality industry was contacted to confirm their continued interest. Of those 183, 144 clients attended their appointment. These appointments were set up within the districts. CETA, working with the NWDA, created a panel that met with the individuals, looked at their resume, looked at what area of the industry they were interested in, was able to share information with these job seekers about accessing the industry and the jobs available in the industry. Of those individuals, 82 were suitable for employment without significant training. 41 were suitable for employment but required training, and 21 needed significant training and development. 123 clients were referred for jobs. 34 clients did not call or follow up with the referral for the interview. So when they left their district days, they were given referrals for particular jobs to follow up. 34 didn't. 22 clients didn't show up for an interview that had been set with them by the private sector employers. 67 clients were identified for placements. 42 were successfully interviewed by prospective employers. 25 of those needed to be tracked. 25 still needed to be tracked after the data had come in. 13 clients were hired at November 2013. Of those that took part in this exercise, 74 clients booked training sessions. 41 of those attended the training sessions. Many of the applicants, what was noted through the exercise is many of the applicants were looking for administrative posts within the hospitality industry, and at the time there weren't as many of those posts available as there were people looking for those type of posts, and so this affected placement, and there was a lack of interest in the jobs that were available or a lack of skills, particularly within, it was noted particularly within the dive industry. Many participants failed to call the company that they were referred to, and when companies reached out, in some cases it took many calls to reach them. And it was actually discovered through the exercise that contacting participants via text message was the most effective way to reach them. Through this initiative, industry partnerships developed and delivered 3 training sessions through the NWDA. There was a counter-service training that came out of that was facilitated by Breeze's Simboko Chicken. There was also an introduction to hospitality that was facilitated by the Ritz, and a food and beverage 101 training course, which was a 5-week program that was delivered by the Marriott. Through this initiative, 144 NWDA clients were assessed by hospitality industry professionals, and the feedback was provided then through their employment services officer to help them in their quest to find gainful employment. This report and the data that I'm providing has been provided to the ministry from CETA. This is CETA's report on the exercise that took place. Their committee met after the exercise to determine how to approach this the next time around, and they have every intention of continuing with the efforts that had been started through this pilot program, and they're looking forward to an even more successful program going forward through this experience that took place.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that seems a little, seems quite bad that only 13 people were wound up with jobs at 180 odd. Wow. Mr. Chairman, I recall there was a statement someplace that this exercise would have also given NWDA the opportunity to hold on to these people, identify them, hold on to them, so that we could follow up and pay particular interest in these people to get jobs. I recognize that some of them were not interested in the kind of jobs that were identified to be available. What has NWDA done since then, and in particular following up on these people, because that's their job to try and place Caymanians, after receiving all these bad stories from CETA that these people didn't turn up, and what efforts have been made by NWDA to register them and assist them?
Through the chair, so all of the participants in that initiative were clients of NWDA. So they continue, as long as they choose to, they continue to be clients of the NWDA. Through that exercise and through the feedback that came out, we've expanded the training and development opportunities to ensure that the barriers that were identified in accessing employment through skills deficits have been addressed. So through that, we've increased the number and availability of the employability skills workshops around interviewing skills to ensure that our people are prepared for interviews, but also expanding the courses related to hospitality industry, as well as, because there was clearly an interest in administrative work, ensuring that there are courses related to that area of interest. So we've got courses, for example, in QuickBooks. We've got one entitled The Receptionist. We've got a course on professional presence, which is important for everybody. We've also got courses in communication skills and customer service, food and beverage, the intro to hospitality, counter service, Microsoft Excel, point of sale, so that kind of the areas of interest that had been expressed by individuals, there are free training and development opportunities in those areas. Which was introduced very recently, this intake and assessment process, all of those individuals, as with all of the Caymanian clients of the NWDA, will be invited to participate in that comprehensive intake and assessment process, which will truly give us the information that we need to help address any barriers to employment, so that, while the agency going forward, will be able to do an even better job than they have been able to in servicing the needs of Caymanians and ensuring that there are Caymanians that are available that have the requisite skills to take up the jobs that are available in the labor market.
Mr. Chairman, did Ms. Dr. Garcia say will be invited? Keeping in mind what my question was about those particular ones that had been identified, what was done to assist them? What efforts were made to assist them?
Before you respond, Dr. Garcia, I am aware that there are several members who now want to ask questions, so please be concise and as to what you're saying.
Through the chair, I apologize if I said will be invited. This system launched 2 weeks ago now, so we're sending out invitations. So invitations have gone out. ESOs, the employment services officers, have all made a list of those clients that they've been working very closely with that they feel could definitely benefit. So we've been making phone calls to those individuals. We're also in the midst of sending out a mass email to all of those individuals to invite them to come in. We're also in the midst of preparing ads that are going into the newspaper. I believe our deadline is today, I was told, so ads will be in the paper very shortly, inviting people to come in, but yes.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I heard correctly, the Deputy Chief Officer said that 82 persons out of the 200 were certified by CETA and the potential employers of being capable of holding a job and needing no training, but only 13 were given a job.
Through the chair, that's correct. 82 are suitable for employment without significant training. The big challenge was that the positions that many people wanted, being administrative posts, were not available at the time.
Were there any positions that these people wanted occupied by work permit holders at the time?
Through the chair, the report from CETA doesn't include that information.
When the Deputy Chief Officer talks about jobs being available to Caymanians, does that include positions or jobs that are currently held by people on work permits?
Through the chair, the jobs that are available and posted with the NWD are posted by employers and would represent posts that they are currently in recruitment for.
To the ministry, I think that the intention of the immigration law in its current format is that all jobs in the Cayman Islands must be made available to Caymanians once they are qualified for the position. In the light that we found 82 Caymanians who CETA and its membership as employers certified as being qualified to hold positions, has government taken any action to recommend that 6 to 9 work permits be canceled to allow these Caymanians to get these positions?
Mr. Chair, through you, again, that goes back to the original point that I was making with respect to the increasing the information that is available from the employment side of the government to the immigration side when it comes to them making the decisions regarding work permits. And so as a result of the fact that we have this registration process, we have these persons are registered with the NWDA unless they've changed their registration status since they were originally registered. That information is available, and that information is accessible by the Immigration Department and their boards with respect to any decisions that are to be made on the issuance or non-issuance of work permits. So that the process of having to get, what was it called, the letters, the waivers, and all of that is falling away because we have now made this transfer of knowledge and information that much more seamless and time sensitive or proactive when it comes to making those decisions. And so from the employment side of the agency, the NWDA and its registration process, a big part of that tool is to enable the persons that are there to enforce the immigration law to be able to do their jobs according to the information that they have to hand.
Was there any communication from the NWDA to the employers that there is an expectation that these 6 to 9 Caymanians would be given employment and that they should not apply for work permits?
Mr. Chair, through you, again, going back to the mandate and the status of the NWDA with respect to what the role of the agency is, as the member rightly pointed out, the issue of work permits and as it relates to the immigration law is a matter for immigration law and the Immigration Department. So the mandate of the NWDA is not necessarily to say to any individual employer, you can't apply for a work permit. What we are attempting to do from ensuring that qualified Caymanians that demonstrate and have been assessed by the industry in this particular instance, that information is readily available to the department for them to then say, is it appropriate in this instance to grant this permit, yes or no? We're providing them with the tools to make the decisions that they ultimately have to make or actions that they would have to take. So from that perspective, we're working with employers to ensure that the opportunities are listed, they're registered, and when they're registered that they are reasonable in terms of the information that they provide to the NWDA. We work on the other end with the employees for those that need the additional assistance. We work with them to develop their cadre of tools, their through the training services, through what the opportunities that they're available to develop themselves to make them more employable. And for those persons who already have demonstrated that level of competence or qualification, well, we provide that ability for them to apply directly to those jobs. And in the end, the Immigration Department and anyone else that has access to the database will be able to see and make an informed decision on whether or not a work permit should or should not be granted.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Bush has been waiting for a time to ask a question, so...
Mr. Chairman, if he has a follow-up to that, then I can wait.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Mr. Miller. Before you do that, I'm conscious of the time of the day, and I do realize that the civil servants have been here for quite some time. I just want to say that we will break at 1:30 for lunch, okay? Which is another 15 minutes from now, just to let you all know.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you will pass my motion. It's been too long time.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Mr. Miller.
So there has been no communication, direct communication from the NDWA to the Business Staffing Plan Board or the Work Permit Board or to the administrative staff who grant temporary permits that there are 6 to 9 Caymanians and these are their names and their addresses that have been certified by CETA as suitable for employment in the tourism industry.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm informed that with respect to the individual cases that you've just identified, I don't think that there was a conversation directly with any of the members of the Immigration Board on those individual cases, but what takes place is that whenever there is any jobs that come online, say that would be relevant for the tourism industry or otherwise, any referrals that are made by the NWDA, the system now requires that the referring officer states why they think this person is a suitable candidate for this position. And so that information, as I said, is readily accessible and available to the boards, including the business staffing plan and the immigration administrators, whomever would be responsible for looking at the application to then make a determination whether or not why the employer has stated that the person isn't available. So the referring officer at the NWDA does give a recommendation as to why they thought this person was suitable to begin with and why they were referred. So that information is made available real time to the boards or the immigration department as and when needed.
On the same topic, can we get a commitment from the NWDA that they will send such correspondence to the board, given the environment in which we are operating, where there is an expectation, and we've drilled this into everybody, that Caymanians don't want to work in the tourism industry. So rather than wait on the happenstance that some member of one of the boards might want to refer to the portal, I think if we have direct information that there are 82 Caymanians who are certified by the employers that they want to work in the industry, that those 82 people, 6 to 9 people, less than 13, should be specifically identified to the Immigration Board, and let's not leave it to happenstance, given the culture and environment in which we operate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, again, regarding those individuals that the member is referring to, as was outlined in the CETA report that the Deputy Chief Officer spoke about, I think in those instances, because we have that information, and I think we will undertake to make that specific representation to them. But I think on an ongoing basis, it's important for the member and the public to know that the reason that we spent so much time and effort in developing this transparent process is that, and because of the resources, again, at the agency, well, it's now up for the relevant people to do what they need to do to make sure that they familiarize themselves with the process. We've made the information available, and so on an ongoing basis, what I'm trying to say is that a project like that may be a bit more difficult to do given the numbers of persons and the increasing requirements of each of the officers. But as I said, with those individuals that we have in this report, we will give an undertaking to get that information to the Immigration Department as requested.
Thank you. Mr. Bush?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can the minister say what investigations takes place on the amount of adverts and the correlation between them and the amount of people out of work in the financial sector, construction industry, tourism industry, and other casual labor sector, where there are persons qualified to take those jobs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I've been informed that currently, with respect to the staffing and resources available within the department, we don't have the ability to do the kind of investigative work that the member is asking. But the post that I mentioned that is in recruitment currently, the labor market information systems manager, which is a mouthful in itself, is that position would be better able to do the kinds of research that the member is asking about, bearing in mind, of course, that that is one individual, but it will actually, the purpose is to look at those type of things, what are presenting themselves to be opportunities in the market versus how many people are out of work, etc.
Mr. Chairman, presumably you have somebody in charge now.
Actually, the other position that's still yet to be filled is the director, and that's a position that's currently also in train.
But I heard you say that. But do you have anyone? You have anyone that sits on the work permit board from NWDA?
Mr. Chair, through you, I will ask the Deputy Chief Officer or the Chief Officer to answer some of these more detailed questions about what the workings of the department.
Because it seems, I mean, from knowledge back in the 90s when I was Minister of Labor, that was one of the key things, having someone on the board. So when the permit came, but you had someone with knowledge, of course.
Well, I think, again, the whole kind of knowledge-based thing, what we're trying to do is move to the age of information, of technology, and so that same level of information that you're talking about can be available to the Immigration Board, but I will now ask
when
the
you get that, you tell me
department.
here. You told me back in 85 that we wasn't having no more paper in government. That's why we need to spend millions of dollars on computers. 30 years later,
Just as much paper. Well, you know, we always have we always have a goal that we're striving towards. But I will ask my Deputy Chief Officer to give us some more color as to how it
I
actually
don't depend
works.
on computers, my dear. Somebody got to put that stuff in there, you understand?
Through the chair, in February of this year, the immigration interface was launched. We've had 2 training sessions with the immigration department on Grand Cayman, and as well as 2 sessions in the sister islands to train the staff, the administrators, the secretaries of the boards, and members of the department. We have a member of the NWDA, one of the managers, does attend the meetings, the business staffing plan board meetings and work permit board meetings, as we are able to accommodate. And we've continued to do that even since February, since the launch of the interface, as a way of continuing to train the individuals on the interface, to ensure that the interface is being used, and also to gather any feedback in the use of the interface so that we can make any necessary changes so that the interface meets the needs of the immigration departments, its board, and its boards.
Well, I don't know if I should ask this of the Minister of Labor, but that would be one of the things that she would attempt to have some insight on, that the boards are members who understands the community, who have knowledge of those various sectors. Those were always the objectives of appointing people on those boards, so that they understood, they had some knowledge in the community of people not working, what posts there are open, and that sort of thing. Maybe we've grown past that too, I don't know, but certainly that used to be one of the reasons why you put people on the board. They understood the mechanisms of the various sectors, and I'm speaking specifically of the Labor Board. But they can't answer that, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me how much work is done in Cayman Brac by the NWDA?
Just, Mr. Chair, just to the question before we get to the Cayman Brac question, with respect to labor boards, now, I mean, that's separate and apart from the immigration board, but regarding labor boards and arbitrating.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, my point is that the two, there should be close relationship between the two.
No, well, that's the point I'm making, is that there is that ability to now give and transfer information in a seamless manner. And as the Deputy Chief Officer has outlined, there is an individual that also sits on those boards. So as and when needed, that person can add color to the conversation as necessary.
But so, Mr. Chairman, though, person sits there now, and that has always been. So why are there still the problem that we are facing? I mean, every one of us in this house gets complaints from persons who are not working, that they are trying to get jobs, that I know how many times that I've tried for people, and yes, they are not getting the job. Now, for various reasons, But obviously, too, we can see the disadvantage of some local people in the arenas.
And that's, Mr. Chair, through you, that's exactly what we were working on from the NWDA side, to make sure that that information is more readily available to the boards, to the immigration department, so they have the tools to say no if necessary to a work permit, given that there is a suitably qualified Caymanian available who are on record through the registration process to do the job. But to answer the question on what exactly is happening.
Before you get to that about Cayman Black, my concern is that if we're sitting down depending on the man from the moon to put in about what his needs are and who he's going to hire, and then we got to take that and then go to the board without any in-depth investigation. If that's what the system's going to be, then I'm much afraid we're going to still end up having the same situation.
But again, Mr. Chair, through you, the whole point of the system now with respect to the way the NWDA does make the referrals, and when they make a referral on somebody to go and interview for this particular job, they state why they think this person is suitably qualified. So it's not that this information is provided in a vacuum. This information is provided to say, well, this is why the agency, through the assessments that they've conducted, through the training that they've conducted, and otherwise, this is why they feel that this person is suitably qualified for the position, and that's why they have been referred. So again, the way the system, the way the structure, as the member would know, obviously the immigration with respect to work permits and the granting or not granting of work permits lies with the immigration department, the immigration boards. And so what we are doing on the employment side is to give them the tools to make a better informed decision as to what locally qualified persons are available, who have registered and who are in the system and who have presented for these types of jobs.
Cayman Black?
Cayman Black, yes, sir. Now I will ask the Deputy Chief Officer to again give more details as to what's happening in the Sister Islands.
Mr. Chairman, through you, in the Sister Islands, the NWDA and the Department of Labor and Pensions share an officer, and through that officer, the employers and the job-seeking clients of the NWDA are serviced.
The one person there, the one lady that used to be there.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Now, that lady was suspended some time ago. What for, and what's the situation existing?
At the end of the answer, we'll take our lunch break. So once it will be approximately 1:30 at that time. So once you've answered that, we'll take our lunch break.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Senior Labor Inspector has been on required leave since April 1st following the receipt of a complaint from a BRAC business owner. So that matter is now ongoing as we conduct investigations.
So a small place like Cayman Black, you have one labor officer, you get a complaint from an employer who has 30 work permits, and that person is suspended from April, May, June, roughly 2 months, and not enough investigation to determine whether she goes back or whatever. I mean, Christ Almighty, they're putting them back for porn, so I don't know why you can't get somebody up there soon now.
Thank you. At this time, we will suspend proceedings.
Mr. Chairman, when we come back, I expect an answer to those things,
Yes,
though.
sir.
Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll suspend our proceedings. And we will reconvene at 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. And given our time constraints, I'd ask everyone to be prompt in returning to the chamber. Thank you.